What is the sound of one hand clapping? What is the sound of one fist punching? What is the sound of the IronCast? Hello, students. Welcome to the IronCast. I am your host, Charlie the Professor Esser, and with me, as always, is my skinny rich friend.
It's Mozz.
Hey, Mozz. Welcome to episode 2 of the IronCast. Shadowhawk Takes Flight. Season 1, episode 2, directed by John Dahl, created by Scott Buck, written by Scott Buck, with staff writer Dwayne Worrell. Gotta imagine maybe Dwayne's doing a lot of the heavy lifting there in the writing. I'm not sure. Danny struggles with his new surroundings. Colleen dishes out a harsh lesson, and Joy sends an unconventional message. Bum bum bum. This is the second episode. We're opening up just after Danny wakes up in the hospital.
Or the asylum, or whatever.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a hospital. It's a mental hospital. It's an asylum. They're in New York City. It could be a wing of Bellevue. I don't know. I mean, it's always an interesting question. I mean, he would be taken to Bellevue because that is the psychiatric emergency room.
No, but for some reason, I got the sense that they didn't turn him over to the authorities, and that somehow this was a place that they owned or managed, and for whatever reason, like it was their own personal Arkham Asylum or something. You know,
I think you're probably in line on that. What it is, and it's a very interesting way that it all plays out, because it's like what it seemed to me was that, you know, as a charitable write-off, Rand was running a private mental institution that they had some control and contact over, but that perhaps they did not have as much control and contact over that they would like, if you will.
Right.
And I think that is the beauty of that story. You know, I think that is maybe the difficulty and the drama and the complexity there, because we do see that, you know, poor old Meacham the Elder, as he's watching in their little spy cams throughout the facility, says, "Oh, we got a guy who actually wants to help him."
Yeah.
And you know, there is some interesting stuff here. Not the least of which is how the drugs affect his chi.
Oh my God! It finally started to creep up on me, the little things that annoy me, and this really, really, really annoyed me. I thought he was, you know, some super monk that can control his body, and some drugs are getting in the way of that. But I don't know. I kind of went back and forth on this, but then it's like maybe it's cool that he's not really a superhero, that he's just a person, and all of a sudden, you know, you do something like this to him and he's completely helpless. Now he has to rely on his human side to get out, but I don't know. I'm wondering what the extent of his powers are, or if he's really that special at all.
Well, we do get his specialness at the end of this episode.
Right.
And we actually get a hint of what it is. And it's kind of a beautiful thing, because it's, you know, and here's what I'm going to, you know, it's an interesting thing when we talk about how you watch shows. And I'll give this example that I like to throw out there. You know, I've always been a fan of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And of course, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. got a lot of flack because people felt, oh, they didn't do this, they didn't do that. It was so, you know, they were just spinning their wheels. And then when Agents of Netflix, when Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. came on Netflix, I actually started to binge watch it, just for fun, you know? And what I realized was that you actually get very quickly into the story in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but that you miss it if it's spread out over week to week. That week to week, it just looks like a monster of the week and a monster of the week and a monster of the week. But if you watch it in total, you actually say, oh, I see how they're doing it. I see that these slow episodes are meant to give you data, that when we get to the exciting episodes, it kind of makes sense. And there's not really a wasted breath in this, because they have to build this entire universe for us. So that when we get to our event at the end of this half season, we go, oh, that's that. And here were all the clues beforehand.
Right. No, I'm just questioning the vehicle that they're using. It seems kind of like, I mean, maybe they were painted in a corner. Like, how do you confine him to one space so that we can elaborate on the backstory a little bit?
Well, but what I'm saying is, so what I'm going to say is that I think Iron Fist actually is best served in a slow watch. Because here's the thing, I actually haven't been able to really binge this show, both because of life constraints and because I wasn't as geeked about this as it is. Right. And as I watch it on a slower pace, I do see that, there was this mention here that pays off later that I might not have got in this one episode had it been something that I just watched and then went right on to the next one.
Right.
And as it was, essentially I'm watching this in 2 half-hour blocks, because I tend to watch it on my lunch break at work, which is a half hour. So I watch part of it, and then my lunch break is over, and then I come back and watch the rest of it. And, when we get into an analysis of what Danny's doing, what he says is, I was a warrior.
Right.
And every time I'm punched, it helps me focus.
Right.
And it is about, because this is the thing. This is the thing of the magic of Kung Fu. Kung Fu, as I've said, is like the greatest superpower, because anyone that is a master of Kung Fu can beat any other opponent. But it requires you to be focused. And, yes, drugs they're giving him are going to impede his focus. He's not going to be able to be the master of Kung Fu with these drugs in his system. And, of course, it makes for a convenient moment, because they say, well, show me the Iron Fist. And he can't, because he can't focus his chi, because in essence, the drugs are driving him mad. And there's a brilliant parallel in this to a movie that I think gets not enough credit for what they were trying to do, which was Alec Baldwin's Shadow.
Oh, I remember that movie.
And the very final scene is that after he has defeated, his great villain in that, the great villain is in the insane asylum, and they make the point to him that, oh no, we were able to save you. Yes, we had to take out a tiny bit of your brain, but don't worry, it's not a part of your brain that does anything, unless you believe in psychic powers. Ha ha ha. And of course, then the guy said, "No, I am the heir of Genghis Khan."
Yeah,
and of course
the shadow no longer knows.
Yes, and then of course you hear from all the other cells, "I am Napoleon," So it is, but it is this point about the idea that there may well be a physical quality to that mental preparedness, and it is this. And if you think about it, from the perspective of a Kung Fu artist, it is all about the mind-body connection. The reason you can...
It maybe a bit about more than that, but also being connected to the spiritual sort of flow of the energy that is everything else as well?
Yes, but the only way you can be connected to that is by having your body and mind honed. There's a reason they don't have a lot of fat martial artists, except for sumos. Right. But then, when you're a sumo, it's all about, getting out of the way. Or overpowering. That there's only 2 moves in sumo. There's step to the side and throw, and step to the front and push. I don't mean to break down sumo into that simplicity, but that is it. It is this idea that, and it is a very powerful martial art, but it is very much about, how do we use our weight and their weight in this arena? And if I have the greater weight, I'm going to push. If I have the lesser weight, I'm going to pull, Because if I pull, and it is very much and it is, there's a reason it's called Tai Chi, because it is this very, very basic idea of pulling and pushing the chi. But you can only pull and push the chi if you can focus your mind. And, if your mind is unfocused, then it's hard to focus the chi. Now, of course, you can have your drunken master view. But, of course, the point of a drunken master is that he is always so focused, he actually needs to take off the focus with a little bit of something, a little something, to help him move forward. Because if he's just focused, then he's just always focused on the moment, and he can't actually even use his powers then, because why would you use your powers? And that of course, is the counterpoint of enlightenment, is that, if you are a saint, you can do great miracles. But if you have gained the enlightenment of a saint, why would you make a miracle? What is the point of it? Is it aggrandizement for me? Is it even is it aggrandizement for God? But what is the purpose of that? What is the purpose of this game I'm participating in? If I am truly enlightened. So, and of course that I think is the crux of the Danny Rand story, is he does not fight for wealth. He does not fight for fame. He does not even fight for justice. He fights because he is enlightened.
Mission.
Yeah, it's like, I'm enlightened, and my enlightenment tells me that there are things... I'm sorry?
Isn't his job to stop the hand?
Well, yes, he is. He is. And mark my words, when they get to the Defenders cast, he is going to be the one who coins what they are. He's going to say, we are the Defenders. We defend against the hand. We do not attack the hand, but we do defend.
Well, no, but in here he specifically says, I am the Iron Fist. I'm the only one that can destroy the hand.
Yes. And
an active sort of approach to say, I have to destroy the hand. Like he has a mission, He has a mission. And this is the interesting question about Iron Fist. Why did he come to the West? Is it because the hand has come to the West? Is it because he had his non-enlightened world that he wanted to get back to and deal with? And I think that is one of the conflicts of Iron Fist, is that, yes, he came to the West because the hand is in the West and the hand must be destroyed. And while folks like Stick and Daredevil are off, doing their little things, Kunlun is one of the, what do they say, 7 or 11 the 7 capital cities of heaven. And he is its immortal defender. To be noted, he is only one of many immortal defenders. Right.
He's really the diversity hire. When you break it down, it's sort of like this thing they do with the Kree every so often in comics, where they will point out that actually the pink Kree are a oppressed minority on Hala, and that actually it's the blue Kree who are basically the guys who say, you pinks, we don't like you. But that's why Captain Marvel was this big deal, because for the pinks, he was the Kree who, of course, he was a pink Kree, but then he got to be the hero. He was essentially the black Captain America of the Kree. There's a whole backstory there that they have. But I have no idea how that ties into everything we're saying. Oh, except I was saying about diversity hires with the immortal weapons. Right. But yes, the Iron Fist is the immortal weapon, and it is a power that he has learned to focus his chi. But it is hard to focus, especially when you're being stoned, when you're drugged, when you have a enemy that isn't physical. I mean, I think that is what I think is the crux of it, is why the drugs are difficult for him, is because it is an enemy he can't punch.
Yeah.
And for what it's worth, that's what they needed for Iron Fist. He had to have someone he couldn't punch. And
the moment he got somebody to fight back against is when he was able to his mind right.
Exactly. And to this extent, man, I mean, it is a very fascinating story with how the Elder Meacham and Ward Meacham are interacting.
Yeah.
And piece by piece, everyone comes to accept that this is Danny.
Right.
And Ward is the one who doesn't care. Because, and I think there is this point in here, again, going into this idea of, Danny isn't concerned about the moment. He isn't concerned about whether or not he runs Rand, or he's wealthy, or he's broke, whether he's a dirty hippie wandering the streets, eating out of dumpsters with Big Al, or if he is, sitting in the penthouse apartment. He doesn't care.
Right.
And along those lines, the Elder Meacham cares that he's in the penthouse apartment, but he knows that in order to stay in the penthouse apartment, there are more important things that you have to deal with. Yeah. Joy cares about this penthouse apartment and may well be the most evil of them all, because as we've said, she's the one who keeps a drugged water in her office. But she
feels bad about doing this episode, at least, Yeah,
well, that's the thing, is she does have this tie to humanity.
Yeah.
Ward is the one who really, he has neither a tie to humanity, like Joy, that makes her regret her evil actions, or a tie to a greater understanding of the world, like the Elder Meacham, who I'm forgetting his name now, who sees that, yes, I want to be in the penthouse apartment, but I also see how the weapon against the hand may be useful to me. Ward sees only, I am here, I am now, I am my belly.
Right.
And so to give you, to give it in its most base forms, Ward is the belly chakra. Joy is probably the heart chakra. I do think that the Elder Meacham is maybe the throat or the mouth chakra, possibly moving up to the third eye. And of course, Iron Fist is the head chakra, the crown chakra, the chakra that connects to the greater universe. But of course, that is this idea that yes, he may achieve nirvana, but nirvana is not a place. Nirvana is not Ghoul. Nirvana is not the place where you stop. Nirvana is this attainment that you can fall from at any time. And I think at its core, what Iron Fist is telling us is that the Iron Fist seeks nirvana, has no nirvana, but falls away. Because at the end of the day, you need all the chakras. You need to go through the entire life. You need to go from your base through your belly to your heart, up through the throat, the mouth, the head, to get to nirvana. And in the end, it is that balance between all things that makes you the Iron Fist, that makes you the superhuman. Interestingly enough, there is, right now in the new Superman comic book over at DC, there's a whole bit about this, how the different energies flow through different parts of your body. And essentially using the kung fu to gain the powers of Superman. It is very interesting. It's delightful. I highly recommend the new Superman over at DC. If you are looking for a $2.99 book to pick up, kids, it's not without its merits. And they have brought back I Ching, who is the man who taught kung fu to Wonder Woman when she lost her powers in the 70s. So he is the mystical. He is essentially the guy. And he's a blind martial artist. So, gee, I wonder where they stole that from when they put that in Daredevil. You had I Ching, then the guy on kung fu, and then Stick. So. Yeah, but that, what? All comic books are stolen from something else. And as people will point out, that Superman looks a lot like a character. I believe his name was the Gladiator.
Really?
Yeah, there was a Pulp Fiction hero who was very similar in his story, in certain ways, to the way that Superman was early depicted. So, it's all something steals from someone else. And, of course, so much of the Superman mythos, as with any genre fiction, you get an idea from someone else, and then you run with it because it's a lot of fun,
And I can see, I mean, like, Superman's an easy character to think that something else was like, because it's just so generically like the ultimate superhero. He can just, he can do anything,
Well, but of course, it's important to remember, originally he wasn't.
Oh.
No, originally, Superman couldn't fly at first. He could simply leap tall buildings in a single bound.
Oh.
He was faster than a speeding bullet, but it's not like he could suddenly fly around the earth in reverse and turn back time. No, it was literally he was faster than a speeding bullet. He was, he could move slightly faster than a lot of cars.
How interesting.
Yeah, his original characterization was that he was just a really Superman.
Huh.
But as you have with any super character, there you have what you call power creep, which is that as time goes on, you have to fight bigger and better monsters, and so your powers have to get more and more powerful in order to defeat them. And which is why most stories you will see they'll have two arcs. So the first arc is hero defeated, then the second issue the hero triumphant. Because he has to overpower someone who is too powerful, and then once he overpowers them, then they move on. Okay, and that of course is what we're moving towards with Iron Fist, which is that he is coming to master his powers. He is going to come and face greater threats. And at the end of this episode, after everyone has told Ward, let's move him to a private facility. Let's get him under guard. Let's try and work with him so that we can take an advantage for him. Ward, still in his belly chakra, says, no, I hunger. I hunger. And if I hunger, I must destroy because I am the Ouroboros, the snake that eats itself. And so as the Ouroboros, the snake that eats itself, he decides what better way to show that he is a greater man than his father or anyone else than to destroy the Iron Fist. How does that work out for him, Mozz?
Well, I mean, it's obviously not going to work out for anybody, really,
Yeah, it does not work out well at all. And, and as I said, you get this very subtle implication of what's going to happen in this scene. Because you're
saying so that Ward.
Sorry. Yes.
No. So you're saying when Ward ordered the three guys to attack Iron Fist?
Yeah. So when we get to that, so prior to this, we have the Elder Meacham and Danny together. Danny has been really drugged out, and Ward and the Elder Meacham decides to talk to him. And essentially, they've sort of given him that sodium pentothal, you're drugged up, so you're not going to have guile. Ironically, I think that had he talked to Danny when he was completely sober, he would have been fine. He was like, yes, this is how my powers work. This is who I am. This is what I do. Because I think that that lack of guile is intrinsic to the concept and the characterization. But here he has no guile, and he basically gives him how, his whole story, which is that I was found by the monks, I was trained to be a living weapon, and in being trained to be a living weapon, I came to be, every time I... Did you hear my son? He just said hi, Mozz.
Hey, buddy.
Yes, Mozz says hey, buddy, to you, Tristan. There we go.
Hey, Tristan.
Yes. The kids, they love the podcast. And Tristan especially, he loves the superheroes. He's waiting for me to do a podcast about Venom, but there is not one yet. And he's really into Gaiju. He wants one about Godzilla.
My little nieces just started to get into watching Green Arrow and The Flash and Super.
Those are good shows. Those are real good shows.
I figured I should start watching them just so I can have something to talk to her about,
You should. They're not bad. I mean, if you have the time to watch TV, please do.
Yeah.
That is my statement to anyone. Supergirl's very good. The Flash is excellent. Arrow, I'm still a little soft on, though I haven't watched it in a while. And of course, Legends of Tomorrow. Once a season, they have a really good episode. But anyway, getting back to Iron Fist. Yeah, but Meacham and Danny are talking, and as Meacham and Danny are talking, obviously there is this explanation of his powers, which is that as a warrior, when he is hit, he becomes stronger. It helps him to focus his chi. Each punch helps him to focus his chi, and that leads the elder Meacham to tell Ward, let's put him somewhere, let's keep him safe, because Ward knows that the hand exists. He doesn't know exactly what it is, but he knows that his status at the top is severely threatened by the hand. Mm. And to this extent, one could make the very solid argument that the elder Meacham's entire problem is he does not trust his children enough to confide in them. Mm. So, for example, at this point, we don't know that Joy knows that the elder Meacham is alive.
Right. I was wondering about that, but yeah, that was the sense I was getting to.
That he's basically chosen Ward to be a successor. Ward is very disappointing as a successor. Mm. And one hopes that we're going to get maybe some evolution of Joy as the time goes on. And I can't wait to see how Susan Sarandon fits into all this. Because we know she's the villain in Defenders, so we got to watch for that. I think she's going to be something beyond the hand. I don't think she's hand-related. I actually think she's going to be something... Basically, she's the consort of the big bad, if not the big bad itself, who stands above it all. I mean, there's been thought that she is actually Mephisto. And the idea which is a very intriguing idea, because she's said that, she is that her character is a very nice person, which, in some readings you could say definitely Mephisto was a very nice person. He simply punishes the wicked. And he might try to trick you into being wicked, but then you're still the one who decided to be wicked. So it's a very interesting take on that. I can't wait to see how it plays out. I hope she is not hand-related, because you don't need another dominant white person ruling the hand. We have too many dominant white people in this. I'm still sad. I'm still upset. Honestly, for all the whitewashing they've done in these series, the fact that they made Stick white bugs me the most. Not because Stick was ever officially stated to be Asian, but just because we all assumed he was. I mean, that's the thing. No, they never say Stick is Asian. He's always kind of, much like Qui-Gon Kane, sort of in that spot of being racial.
Ambiguous, yeah.
Yeah, ambiguous, as they say. But, and that's fine. They even said he had, blue eyes because his eyes were pale from being blinded. But the idea that, Stick should be, just a white dude, it was very disappointing. And, I mean, they got a great actor for it. It's sort of like Tilda Swinton. You put a great actor in that role, it's hard to hate them. But it is it is a point where you go, is this really... that's the thing, is for me, Danny Rand being white, he's white in the comic books, and maybe it's an awkward story, but it's the story that's already been told. There's no reason to make Danny Rand Asian just because he's a martial artist.
Right.
But for a character like Stick, I think that where there's the strong Asian implication to him, and nothing about his history to say that he is white, making him white, I think, is a little weak, especially since we're going to be punching Asians all the time. And that's always the thing. Is it doesn't matter if your villains are of a different group than white people. It's white people can punch white people. It's just fine. White people can punch people who aren't white, so long as there are other people alongside them who also aren't white. But when you have a bunch of white people punching down on a bunch of people who aren't white, it really reminds everyone of colonialism, and that's kind of, it's not a good story. It's not a good story. But Danny Rand, I think, I don't think Danny, like I said, my biggest complaint about this series so far isn't the story, it isn't the acting, it is simply the cuts. I think that the director is not doing enough long shots. I think he always wants to see people's faces when they're talking, and I think he's missing how people actually have conversations. Because you don't always see someone's face when you're talking to them, even when you're talking right to them. They may be looking away, they may be looking down, and each of those actions have meaning in the story.
Right.
And so I think that the director, I hope, is using more, as it goes on, maybe using more long shots, doing less cuts. Because I think that this is a story, especially because I think this is a dialogue-driven story.
Right.
And I think what you sometimes have is that in a dialogue-driven story, a lot of directors think they have to do a lot of cuts. Because they think that it's going to speed up the story. But the fact of the matter is, in a dialogue-driven story, it's not supposed to be fast. And that, I think, is what the strength of this show is, that if you watch it slow, it's a lot better. Because if you watch each episode as 2 episodes, so that you get to think about what happened in the first half, and then you see what happens in the second half, you actually get a better understanding of it. But let's hop to our denouement. Basically, Ward has decided to get Danny beat up to show him he's the top dog. And, of course, each punch helps him focus. And then the Iron Fist is released.
It's like, if he... I don't know, that... It's like just getting angry or, getting punched. It was a little soft as far as logic for me.
It's not about getting angry. It's about each punch giving you a point of focus.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
So, and that's the idea. It's about having a point of focus. It's about focusing. And it's like, if you ever read Mages of the Ascension, which is a role-playing game, all the mages have what are called foci, which is that there's something that you have to have in order to do your magic. And it can be anything. It can be any number of things in any different ways, but you have to have this thing for your ritual. And when you have your ritual, you come to understand what you're doing, and it allows you to focus. And so what happens is he gets his focus with each punch, and then he can take his fists and punch as well. And we get this great moment, which I think is, honestly, to me, one of the best scenes, when he punches through the door.
Yeah, I thought it was awesome. It was a beautiful Superman punch.
It was a great punch, and then what happens after, I think, is the point, which is that he punches through the door, and then he just walks off. He doesn't punch through the door and run and jump and fly. No, he punches through the door and says, well, that's what I need you to do. And then he walks right out, probably still without shoes. And that is how you end an episode. And it was beautiful, it was fantastic, and I loved it. And based on that, I'm feeling very positive about the 3rd episode, which I'll start watching tomorrow.
Yeah, same.
And if you're having a hard time with Iron Fist, here's what I'm going to say. Go back, watch it a bit slower. We're doing these podcasts once a week. So why don't you, once a week, watch an episode and see how you feel. Because you might find that if you watch it slow, if you get into that Zen moment of one-hand punching and not looking for the speed, you might find, now I understand the path of the Iron Fist. Okay, Mozz, if anyone wants to talk Iron Fist with you or any of the other shows on Netflix or anything else that might interest them, such as Arrow and The Flash, how can they find you?
Well, they can email me at mozzmanzor@gmail.com or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzor. That's MOZZMANZOOR.
Okay. And, of course, you can always write to me in that old-fashioned email way, net slow way, as the Iron Fist himself would likely choose to do, at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, at gmail.com. And if you're one of these hip kids who has to have it now, you can follow me on the Twitters, at Charlie Esser. That's CharlieEsser. Look for the 2 E's in the middle for quality.
Charlie, I feel like you need to get a P.O. box to add at the end of that.
Yeah. Like I got the money to afford a P.O. box. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I spent all my podcast money on my diamond-crusted Cadillacs, just to keep it all consistent between all my podcasts as to how much I say I make at podcasting. But, ladies and gentlemen, remember, the path of the Iron Fist is not a path to a door, but a road leading forever into the horizon. Meditate upon this wisdom until we meet again.